Today, we are shining a light on the often fuzzy term of enterprise design. We'll start by looking at architecture through the lens of a designer with my guest, Milan Gunter. During his career, Milan stumbled upon enterprise architects and decided to view the enterprise not as a design constraint, but as an opportunity for interdisciplinary collaboration. Having worked with our previous guest, Wolfgang Goebl, he truly understands both worlds. In this conversation, we bring design and architecture together to create an enriched view of what's possible. Do you want to sharpen your skills as an enterprise architect? Welcome to Verbonden, the podcast where we combine insights from experienced professionals with real-world examples from the world of architecture. My name is Elise Luyckx, and I am your guide through the layers of enterprise architecture, making it less mythical and more concrete. First things first, how do you perceive yourself? You call yourself enterprise designer, architect, and what was your journey?
I use the term enterprise designer. And so I have a background in design, and it's a bit of a confusing term because it's used for many different things. But to clarify, so I studied originally graphic design, so visual identities and print and so on, and then went into user experience, and then into service design, that basically created this idea to look into enterprises, because what happened is that I worked with like a small team of people. We studied together for many big organizations. So that was great, we created our consultancy and it actually worked, like we got projects, but then a lot of those projects were never really implemented.
Okay.
For all sorts of reasons, like technical, bureaucratic, political, reorganizations, or some vendor couldn't deliver something, or some other team did the same thing, but our team didn't know, or the client actually left, or left to some other company and so on. And so we were looking for ways to make the enterprise and the organization itself part of the design process and not just an external constraint or factor. And that's when I stumbled upon these strange people called enterprise architects.
Okay.
Yeah, because that really was not on our radar at all. Okay. And it's still a field that is completely unknown to many in the design world. Because people like to talk about organization design, but enterprise architecture as a kind of technical or structural practice, and it's just not really on the radar of people. And so we wanted to change that, but we also wanted to keep the term design, because we think enterprises need not just to be structured well, but they need to be actually useful to people in the end, customers, employees, investors, and so on. And that also is the case for public enterprises, right, and NGOs and so on. So it's not just companies. And we were looking for ways to bring together this idea of a useful design and the structure and the behavior and the dynamics. And then we called it enterprise design mostly because, it's about enterprises, it's a design discipline, we think, and it was still kind of available as a keyword. So when you Google it, we kind of own that space. So that's another reason. Otherwise, you could also, there are other terms floating around. Enterprise architecture is one, business design, organization design. They are all in theory synonyms, but in practice, they are usually very different because of their history. Yeah. And so we basically name what we do enterprise design, and then created all sorts of things like this conference and books and edgy and so on to then fill it with life, And so, that's how the story came together.
Okay. thanks for sharing that. Sorry. There's also this using the word design in the enterprise architecture world. They are also speaking of the future state design, future system design, and that can be confusing sometimes. And that ends up with the world where you come from, saying the design area. Can you maybe try to make this more concrete for the enterprise architects that are listening, or to what is the design space actually?
So it's mostly called these days as the design industry or the design field. So it's, the traditional field is, so I studied what was called communication design. So it's graphic and logos and colors and fonts, typography and so on. Okay. And then there's another big traditional field, which is product design or industrial design. Right? For example, someone designed these chairs here we're sitting on, or your phone and so on. And then with the digitalization, this changed and became more about interactions, right? So now most of designers that call themselves or that make up the design space are making apps or websites or some kind of digital experience, right? Yeah. And so with that, this notion of experience came in, and the idea of a user-centered approach rather than a designer-centered approach, right? So if you look at traditional design, like Philippe Starck or something, it's mostly about them and expressing their talent, their artistic outlook on the world. And the user-centered approach kind of turned that around and said, no, we actually have to look at the people that are supposed to use whatever we are designing and start with them. Yeah. And then you have these techniques like personas and journey mapping and so on. And this is where it starts to intersect with what architects are doing, right? Because if you call it a journey map or a process map, in the end you're mapping some kind of sequence of activities. The difference is just, are you looking at some user or customer or person doing something, or are you looking at an abstract representation of what's going on in the enterprise? But in the end, you can use both views on almost everything going on, right? And when I say the design industry these days, it's mostly framed by people working for Apple, for example, and making apps for iOS. That's what most people mean now when they use the term design. Yeah.
I also got in contact with UX designers, of course, from the job as solution architect. Yeah. But I think I met a designer at Core, because this person, she was designing a new website, and she introduced the term of top tasks, and also the concept of we need to talk to user groups as well. Yeah. Which for me gave me the first notion of that there's more than UX design, dragging boxes. This needs to be a button, a drop-down list, and it's more about when you have a website. Well, that's in the application design still, but if you have a website, if someone opens it on a phone or on a desktop, the top tasks need to be on the screen there, because otherwise your website's not going to be used. Well, this was 5 years ago. Yeah. So that was, I think, very relevant, and it was absolutely not the approach that I was having from the business architecture and solution architecture perspective. I'm just giving another example from my own life, where I saw that they really intersected. Well, it was a crossover of both disciplines. But I don't know if you think it's that a good example, or do you have maybe another example?
Well, yeah, so this is kind of what we are trying to break apart and bring together again with Edgy, right? So Edgy has these 3 facets, if we call them, and 2 of them are experience. So the experience is what someone goes through in their life. Fundamentally, that's it, you know? So if you want to, I don't know, apply for a loan or get a driver's license or buy something online or register for a conference, that's something you want to do, right? So that's the task in our jargon. You can then, as an enterprise, you can try to position yourself in this experience with something useful. And that something could be a website, it could be an app, it could also be maybe an event or a book or whatever. There are some things that you will need to make to support the task and to get into people's experiences. And the issue is often that UX design is applied on a level where these things already have been decided. So you have a book designer, a web designer, an app designer, and maybe an event designer, all working separately.
Okay.
And the result, of course, then is that the experience is not great because they're not coordinating. They don't look at the transition points between these different channels. The systems that are supporting them are implemented independently. And on the other side, you have maybe a business analyst also working separately on certain databases or process flows or whatever. And so unless you bring these things together, and there's also a third facet in Edgy, which is identity, which is who are we and why are we doing this, right? So a lot of business ideas are feasible and viable and desirable, but should we do it as a company or a service provider or something? So if you bring all of them together, so someone's experience, the architecture, how it actually works, and the purpose, the identity, then we think enterprises are more coherent than if you do these things in isolation and on a low kind of implementation level. Yeah.
And the original frustration or pain point that you mentioned at the beginning was, as a designer, if you're siloed or looking holistically at the products of the experiences of a company. Sorry, I tend to say products, but product is actually a different part of the Edgy. So if you're looking at the experiences, siloed or holistic, the main pain point would be if it doesn't cross over to the identity questions or to the enterprise architecture questions. Then you have the risk that you design something great, but it's totally not relevant for what the company's identity is, it's not going to be made in real life. It's not going to be created.
It's mostly that latter point, because when you do experience design, you really, if you do it properly, then you identify top tasks, for example, through qualitative, quantitative research, and then you design something to serve them. And we did a lot of that, like, for example, we did a global intranet design for all employees of a very, very big logistics company. Only to find out that the core thing that they wanted to implement, the software vendor couldn't do. Okay. And so it's like 6 months of work. I mean, we got paid, that's great, but you produce what I like to call SharePointware, so it's just something that ends its life sitting in some shared drive on SharePoint, and it's not going to see the light of the day, And so this is why we think more than just looking at the customer and the user, we also have to look at the organization, the enterprise that's supposed to deliver any kind of experience or interaction or service or product, and make that part of the design process. Yeah.
And if you are not, if I assume it's a different person in the company, who's looking through the enterprise architecture lens, because sometimes people are having the same roles, different caps. Assuming it's a different person or even department in the company, what would you need from the department, so to speak, or the person? What would you need as inputs for your work to prevent for example, inventing something that the vendor is not able to deliver.
So organizations currently are often not really designed; they are more managed, right? You have people with MBAs, and they learn that you need certain things, right? So you need IT, you need marketing, you need sales, you need HR, and no one was really questioning these things. They are just in place. This is how the world works, and so people are just replicating this. And now, if you look at experiences, they often cut through this, right? So I give you one example. I took a train from Paris to Barcelona. It was operated by the Spanish company called Guenther. And so it starts in Gare de Lyon, and it has a board bistro, like a cafe, where you can go. And so I went and wanted to get a drink, and the person working there spoke only Spanish. No French, and no English.
Okay.
And it's an international train, right? So another thing is that Guenther and SNCF is a collaboration. They use different seat systems. So in Guenther, the seats are 1, 2, 3, 4, and in SNCF it's more like 11, 22, and so on. Each row gets a new decimal number. And they couldn't adapt the IT systems to have only one. So depending on what ticket, who you buy the ticket from, you get a different seat number. Every seat has a French number and a Spanish number.
Okay, and they're both on the seat.
Yes, but everyone is super confused. No one finds their seat, and there's a lot of tension and conflict when people board the train, because there are 2 seats 11, right? And so how is this relevant to enterprise design? Do you think the UX designer at Guenther has any, what can they do to improve this experience? And the answer is often nothing, because they are working in a digital department and not IT, right? Maybe they're even part of marketing, and they are making some websites and some apps, and they can't really do anything about this. It's just not in their scope, right? But the experience is really bad.
Yeah.
So you can't really be an experienced designer not looking at these things, because then what are you designing, right? What impact do you have on the experience? And so to answer your question, in this case, I think we would have to look at the IT systems behind for booking. We have to look at recruiting, so HR capability, to look at language skills, for example, and bring that into, and if we add language skills as a requirement for people working in the probably outsourced onboard
in the international trains,
then we will positively impact the customer experience. And so you have to make this link. You have to make the link between HR, IT, all sorts of things to the customer, and so you need mostly permission to do that. And the other thing we need is kind of a readiness to look at whatever we found from the customer side, and also on the inner workings or the ecosystem side, and hold a mirror to the organization and ask, here, look, this is what is going on. Is this correct? And what do you think could be better? Right? And so if the organization is very political, often they don't want to know. Like you mentioned top tasks, we often have issues actually asking the customer what they really want, because the organization is afraid to find out, because it might be not what they are currently assuming or what they are currently serving. Right?
Or what brings them the most revenue. And that's a tension point, I think, in the field as well.
Yes, exactly.
All right. It's an interesting example with the very tangible example of the train from Paris to Spain. All right. Then, for an enterprise designer, for a lot of people, it's a new field. You mentioned EDGI as the shared language. What is the tool set of? Because I'm always I say in the podcast, I'm taking my backpack and I'm going on a journey through enterprise design.
Okay.
What kind of tools, frameworks will I uncover in the enterprise design world that I will want to put in my backpack?
Yeah, so in theory, anything that helps designing better enterprises should be in that backpack, right? So that's and it is potentially a lot of things.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of challenge you find on your journey, right?
Right.
I want to just clarify that you don't need to use Edgy in order to do enterprise design, right? You can use whatever you want, but if you are designing how it works, how it will be experienced, how people collaborate, how they communicate, how information flows, and the dynamics between that, then you are doing enterprise design, right? Whether you call it organization or business or architecture or whatever. I think so. There are lots of in the community. We have a lot of very smart people who have a lot of tools in their belt, right? So I think today we have workshops on VSM, for example, the viable systems model.
The viable systems model.
Yeah, that's one thing that you might want to put in. Or before we had people talking about Theory U, for example, which is a change management theory. We have people using things like Archimate, maybe if it gets a bit technical. We have people using.
So Archimate, I know it as a visualization language. What were the other two? Can you maybe explain it shortly? Not completely how it's used, but what it's used for, maybe?
Yeah, so VSM is a Stafford Beer model, so it's from systems thinking kind of, and it's talking about enterprises as a fractal set of 5 systems that interact with each other, and you can use it to look at gaps in the way organizations make decisions together, basically, and whether there are feedback loops in place, and if they are missing, then you can try to add them. So that's kind of the tool, and another tool that I mentioned was Theory U. So it's a change process model of stages that organizations go through when they transform.
Yeah.
So both of them are coming more from organization development and kind of the human lens, you could even say the psychology, sociology kind of view on enterprises, not so much the technical one.
Yeah.
But then, today enterprises are like half human and half code and now AI, right? So you also have to have some technical stuff in there, otherwise you might end up doing funny workshops, like go to the desert with the leadership and try to have a vision. But then the actual automated system, when someone files a claim or something, is dictated by Salesforce or SAP, and you're not actually designing anything.
Yeah.
So in order to bridge that gap, you have to then also have some technical understanding in your backpack. So that's covering the identity and the architecture facets. And then for the experience facet, I think you need to add some mostly research techniques. So user research, customer research, qualitative interviews, observation, surveys, so that you can actually collect the evidence firsthand, not just stakeholder opinions or requirement documents. They might lie. So get actually first-hand evidence, and this is something that I find is weirdly missing from business and enterprise architecture curricula, is learn how to uncover direct truths from customers. And the customer, I don't mean the business. I mean an actual customer, like for example, someone taking the train when you're working for a train company. So that also needs in the backpack.
Yeah, I did meet some architects exactly who were using products that they were working on in the company, and I recognize that it's a big added value. Yeah. I also recognize that it might be a pattern there with the type of people who are looking into systems. They really might prefer desk research as a first go-to point to get their info.
Yeah.
So it's a very good point, I think, to also add the skill set.
One thing that you can also do if you feel like your approaches or your background is a bit incomplete when it comes to edgy, because it's quite rare these days that you have someone really covering all facets in detail. So one thing that we experimented with Qualiware, with our sponsor here, is use AI for that. So generate models. And we worked a lot on prompts that introduce bias.
Okay.
So for example, if someone makes a journey map and they have a background in architecture or business analysis, there's a risk that the journey map will be more a process map.
Yeah.
So in order to not do that, you can, or in order to actually get to a real journey map, you can tell ChatGPT, for example, that you are you take the role of a user researcher. You spend months, like 6 months, painstakingly uncovering actual unmet customer needs, and you finally get to make an incredible journey map that will surprise and impress everyone with these insights you never thought possible.
Okay.
And then it will make something up. It will hallucinate something that resembles a journey map.
Yeah.
It will be wrong.
Yeah.
But you can. It's much easier to start from that than from a blank page.
Yeah, and sometimes it can confirm or make you rethink some of the things that you already had.
Yeah.
Yeah, like hallucinate something, and the humans will be able to filter.
Yeah, and you can then take this model, like in the modeling tool, you can just generate it and export it and print it, and go to the marketing department and say, look, here's the journey map. And if they really angrily cry and shout at you that everything is wrong, then you did a really good job, because then they will make the actual model.
Yeah. All right, correct my model, and then okay, that's a very good approach to make some kind of I only know the Dutch word, like a version that will be killed very quickly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So to speak.
You do that a lot in enterprise design, because you kind of have to step on people's toes. That's your job. So no choice.
To get the reaction, and then you get the information.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, it's a very good thing, I think, to learn today. So thank you for sharing. I have one final question for you. For you personally, you've been in the enterprise design field for a few years. And what is for you the next step that you want to grow or, improve in?
Yeah, so I think we are really onto something here that challenges what I said before, like the traditional way to manage enterprises, right? So instead of planning and working through risk and reward, bringing design as an approach to enterprises, I think this is really what we're doing and what this is about. And what's still holding us back, I think, is that if you look around this conference, a lot of people here are quite geeky, love models and love boxes and arrows and so on, and that's great. But I think the next step is to bring this into the broader management education, so that people learn like a basic way to map and model enterprises without going too deep into, for example, formal languages like Archimate or BPMN. So that's why edgy is, we call it semi-formal. You can use it you can sketch it, or you can use post-its, and that's fine. Like you don't need big meta models or tools or anything. And so we think that the more people adopt this way of thinking, the more enterprises will get useful for customers, but also for other people. So that's what I would like to see. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Well, yeah, definitely. I think it's your personal goal. And I hope you will succeed.
Thank you.
I mean, just say it like that.
Well, thank you for interviewing me. I think that's one step on the way.
Yes, exactly. Let's spread the word.
Thank you for listening to our conversation with Milan. Next time, we bring it back to our own Belgian soil to speak with enterprise architect Rudy Klaas. He has a wealth of experience putting theory into practice, and we will hear directly from his journey. Deze aflevering werd geproduceerd door Pieter-Jan Rombout en de muziek is geproduceerd door Lennart Busset.